Yes, because it will be recorded. Yes. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Interfaith Interconnect Religion Chat. If you'd like to move a little bit closer, if you're comfortable doing that, you're welcome to. If not, you can stay where you are. That's just fine. I'm Marcia Alchison, and I am the Leadership Coordinator for Interfaith Interconnect. And we're very appreciative of Center for Spiritual Living for their support over the years. We've been in existence for about 10 years, and I think you were with us from the beginning or close to it, so we really appreciate that. So we'd like to thank Harriet Hawkins, Senior Minister here at Center for Spiritual Living, and for hosting us, and also to Lynn Plaus for being our tech person. We really appreciate that, Lynn. Thank you. You've enabled some additional people to attend our religion chat today, so thank you very much. Is anyone here right now at religion chat for the first time? Oh, that is great. That is outstanding. Thank you. And I don't know about Zoom, how many people are there for the first time or how many people are on.
There's about 6 people on right now.
Anyone who's on Zoom at religion chat for the first time? No one raised their hand? Okay. Must be some of the regulars. All right. Okay. Yes. Interfaith Interconnect holds our religion chats on the second Wednesday of most months, and we welcome your suggestions for topics. So if any of you here today have an idea for a future topic, you're welcome to tell me after our meeting today, or you can always email us at interfaith.interconnect@gmail.com. We really welcome your ideas. Many of our topics have come from our participants. As is our custom, I'll begin today's program with Interfaith Interconnect's mission statement, which is to enrich, inform, and educate ourselves and others about the great diversity of faiths and cultures in our valley. Today's topic is the second in a 3-part series. When bad things happen to good people, how does your faith or congregation help someone to recover following a significant loss, emergency, or tragedy? Our presenters are Gaurav, Rastogi, Hindu, who also teaches yoga and meditation and does many other things, and Reverend Harriet Hawkins, Senior Minister here at Lighthouse Center for Spiritual Living, Livermore Valley. Each speaker will have 25 minutes total for their presentation and for any time they'd like to reserve for questions. We plan to break into informal small groups at 6 o'clock for anyone who wishes to stay on and converse with each other up to 6:30. And now, please help me welcome our first speaker, Gaurav Rastogi.
All right, check. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. May we begin with a little centering. So please join me in sitting calmly. We're sitting upright if you're sitting on a chair as you are. Full foot contact with the floor below. And okay, I'm going to mess around with this. Sorry. This is, okay, it's all good. Okay, sit with full foot contact on the floor below. Sit comfortably with your back straight. The back needs to be straight but not stiff. The back, neck, and head are in a straight line. And now you may close your eyes and relax the expression on the face. Let the eyes sink a little into their sockets. Let the tongue fall into the mouth. Relax your shoulders, relax your belly. Inhale into the belly and let the belly expand. As you exhale, simply let go. Let go of your thoughts. Let go of your preoccupations. Let go of all unfinished business and just settle down. Breathing into the belly, let the belly expand. As you exhale, imagining those helium balloons that when you let them go, they float away, disappear into the sky. Let everything go. Feel a sense of relief sweep through the body as you exhale. Now we're going to make a O with the mouth, O with the back of the throat, and O at the heart center, at the center of the chest, right below the rib cage, right above the belly. Just imagining opening your heart in an O shape, and you're just going to whisper out an O sound as if everything is okay. Exhale completely. Take a deep breath. Inhale. Gentle O sound. Hear those vibrations in your heart, in your body, and fill this entire room and our community together. Second time, inhale. Sitting in silence, feel the sound. One more time, inhale. Keep the eyes closed, sit in silence. I'm going to chant something and then I'll ask you to open your eyes. I'll describe what I'm saying. तात स्वर्ग अपवर्ग सुख धैर्य तुला एक अंग तुलनता ही सकल मिली जो सुख लब सत्संग प्रभिसी नगर कीजे सब काजा हृदय राखी कौशलपुर Raja. I'll tell you what it means and then you can open your eyes. May all the joys of heaven and what lies beyond be on one side of a scale, and on the other side, let there be just this communion, this community that we have together, this satsang, and the joys that we get from this satsang, may they be greater than the joys of heaven and everything that's beyond. The second verse is, enter into the city with your heart centered on the Creator that animates each one of our hearts. And then you may enter in joy and accomplish your tasks. And now, blink your eyes open. Namaskar. Welcome to this conversation. The topic today is when bad things happen to good people. What does your community, your faith do to help people recover and center? So I'm going to give you a talk. You can keep your questions to the end. I will try to ram through the talk in about 15 minutes, leaving questions, and hopefully they'll be fun. When we think about bad things happening to good people, in the Hindu tradition, we call them tapatraya, the threefold miseries that befall us. Those miseries could be miseries that are caused by supernatural or just beyond situational causes. So those are called adidavik. So the whole thing is called tapatraya. Traya is three, as you know from Sanskrit and English. Tapa is heat. So the three miseries, the threefold miseries. The first misery is that caused by superhuman or situational things. There's a drought or an earthquake or a fire and or a recession in the economy, something that isn't really in our control. The second kind of problems that befall people are physical related. They might be you had an accident, or there's a virus, something physical that has impacted and touched the person. And the third is something inside that's never visible outside, but you can feel it, and that's adhyatmic, which is mind and body related. This is you're feeling sad, depressed, grieving, or unhappy, or something inside is just not right and you're not happy, irrespective of what happened. Now, they may come together, they may come separately. But for today's conversation, I'm going to treat them as if they come separately. So we can talk about the sorts of things that the Hindu community resorts to. Let's talk first about Adi Daivik. Deva means those energies that animate this universe. Things that are, the market is moving in the way it is, the traffic is moving the way it is, gravity works the way it does, and so on and so forth. Things that are supernatural, beyond our control. And when those things happen, it's terrible indeed. There are wars, there are famines, there are earthquakes, and there are things beyond our control. There's nothing you can do. And then how do you respond to that? There are 5 things that I could think of that typically someone in a Hindu family sort of resorts to when these sort of things happen. The first, naturally, is astrology. So we now look at, okay, these things are happening, it's a terrible time. I could say there's something wrong with me, I caused the earthquake, or there's something in the alignment of the universe that, well, this isn't just a great time, what are you going to do? And if that's your conclusion, the Indian astrology is different from Western astrology. It's lunisolar and a mix of a whole bunch of stuff that's going on. And there you're looking to an astrologer who might actually help you understand what's going on in the world, what's going on with you and your charts. And then they might actually tell you to buy some gems and jewelry. You're seeing a few rings over here. Those gems will allow you to balance out the energies of the universe in some way that stabilizes things. They might also prescribe to you these geometric yantras. I'm not sure how to describe it, but a shape like this is a yantra. And so a yantra, they might say, also a way to harness and direct the energies of the universe in a particular direction. So number 1, astrology. 2, there are amazing stories in the Hindu collection, and those stories are important, and we often resort to those stories. The verse I chanted at the beginning comes from an epic called the Ramayana. And so we resort to our heroes. We look at our heroes, and those are very important motifs for us because they have all gone through trials and tribulations. And when we are reminded of what they had to go through, we're somehow reminded that maybe this little thing I'm having is not as bad. And what makes them the heroes that they are is the fact that they went over and across and beyond those problems that they faced. And therefore it gives us hope, it gives us courage, it gives us something to look forward to. The third thing you might do is you might actually go to the temple, the Hindu temple, and do some rituals, pujas, havans, fire rituals, or a specific kind of pujas for the 9 planets, not including Pluto. Our planetary system is slightly different, but we have 9 planets. Sun and moon are included in that. And you might do some rituals to, again, placate those energies and stabilize them. And so the idea is to find calmness and find energy in order to get over and around whatever problems have come to us. We also resort to, of course, philosophy. If you know the word karma, which I bet everyone in this room does, the word karma is what goes around comes around, sort of. That's the Western English version of it. The underlying thing is a unstoppable trust in the calculus of the universe. Understanding that what I do moves the universe, and it moves right back and acts upon me, and it's always in balance. And what that means is bad things are happening, perhaps bad things were done by me in the past, maybe this life, maybe prior life, and on the other side, if I do good things now, it might balance itself out. So then the question of why me becomes a little easier to understand. Well, it may be what you did, it may be what you're participating in, but as long as you have a trust in the calculus of the universe, you may be more confident that things are not random. All manner of random things are not happening to me, because then what is the trust? You don't know if you can walk out and not be hit by a truck, right? And so donating and service become things that you do to handle that. And finally, fifth is community support. Community support is obviously very important. And an interesting thing, obviously the community comes around to help, and I'll talk about that in the third part of this thing. But here what I want to say is temples in the Hindu tradition are actually treasuries for the community. They're banks, but not in the kind that lend you money. They're essentially rich people would donate gold and silver and jewelry and a whole bunch of stuff. There are temples in India where they have treasuries, Indiana Jones style, treasuries underground that have not been opened for generations, hundreds of generations. They opened 2 of them, and they found that it was probably $20 billion worth of gold in there, and they quickly shut those. And then the others, they haven't even bothered to open. They think it might be $1 trillion worth of gold. Don't get any ideas. But, but those treasuries are there for a purpose. They, at times of famine, when the rivers run dry or the ponds dry up, or all sorts of stuff happen, the treasuries are opened and they're used for community rehabilitation, for food, for service, for rebuilding the community. And so the community comes in. Of course, there are food drives and service drives that are led by individuals and the temples. So this is the part one of what happens when the community, when supernatural things happen. And you didn't deserve it, but it happened to you. What are you going to do? This is what you're going to do. Now let's talk about the second part, the physical problems. There is a physical ailment that is now hitting you, which might be there's a fracture, or there's a bug, or there's an accident that happened, something physical happened, which is the things that are happening in the, in quotes, material world. And here, of course, you have the community with you. Everyone's here to support you, all manner of help. But the 2 interesting things that I like to call out here in the Hindu tradition, and this might sound odd because, well, you're going to say, how's this religion? But trust me, it is. Ayurveda. Ayurveda is the science of long life, that's what it says, but it's Indian medical practices. And they're not, so what the system that we follow here, we call it in India allopathy. I don't know if you ever use the word, because it's called medical sciences here. But in India, you'd call this allopathy and that thing Ayurveda. And the whole point of Ayurveda is to restore balance. The body is always trying to get to a homeostatic balance, an internal state of balance, and for some reasons it's gone off the rocker. It's just not in a place where it needs to be. And then what Ayurveda is trying to do is trying to get you back on the wagon, and then the wagon can keep rolling. The second thing that a Hindu person might go to is yoga and pranayama. Similar reasons. So breath work. Because if there's a physical problem, you're breathing shallow, your energy systems are out of whack. And then what this does is it resets the breath, resets the mind, resets the body, restores it to factory conditions. If you've ever returned your phone, you've restored it to factory conditions. That's what we're trying to do with yoga and pranayama. Not just bending into pretzel poses, nice as they are, but we're trying to restore our range of motion and our sense of self. And so the Sanskrit word for this is swastha. So swastha means healthy, but the roots of that word comes from being in the self. If I'm not falling off, I'm not having to rely on something outside, I'm in the self, mentally and physically and spiritually, and that's a state of well-being, and that's swastha. And that's what Ayurveda, yoga, and pranayama are doing, and you might go to those people as well. Ayurveda also, if there's physical problems like knots in the body or pains and so on, you might go to one of the massage places. There's a couple here. The Ayurveda massage is different from your regular massage, where they use herbs, ashes, a whole bunch of other stuff, and they really rub it in. because they're trying to cure you, and so they might prescribe different food. If you check into one of those ashrams, well, buyer beware, because I had friends send photos. It's four cubes of watermelon, and that's lunch, because they're trying to juice you, cleanse you, and then beat you into shape. And you know, I guess it works, because they come back happy. So that's the second one. So now we've dealt with what happens if there's some supernatural, situational thing. We talked about that. What happens if there's a physical thing? We talked about that. Now I'm going to talk to you, what about the things that aren't visible to anyone other than a friend? And that is things that are happening in the mind and the spirit. That only a friend can see our face and say, what's wrong? Tell me what's going on. And here, we do several things in the community. And I'm going to talk about, let's see, 4 of those. Connection. When there are ritual periods of mourning, for example, you will be visited upon, of course, by friends and family. When you're sick, someone will come visit you. Of course, bring food with them. And the interesting thing in the Indian tradition, Hindu tradition, is when someone dies in the family, that family for the next 13 days is not cooking. They're not allowed to cook. They're not allowed to have home fires. They are going to get food delivered to them. And so the entire family now, community gathers around. I'm going to send breakfast, I'm sending lunch, I'm sending, the afternoon tea, I'm sending the dinner. The whole thing is worked out. Everyone chips in and participates in your grief together. And then so that's the connection part. People come and talk to you about how you're feeling, how you're doing. And the Hindu tradition does not like to wish away the grief. It doesn't say, oh, you'll get over it, right? It wants you to grieve fully. It wants you to lean in on your grief and say, all right, you know what, just go all out, just go all in, and then come out whole on the other side. So the connection is really important. And when I talk about part 4, the bonus part of today's talk, I'll talk to you about what we're doing here. So now we talked about connection. The second is meaning. A lot of times the internal problem is a loss of meaning, a loss of purpose, a loss of connection. And you'll see this when people you might know are experiencing burnout. They just can't be motivated to get out of bed, right? Because they're just done. This is it. They've lost meaning. They've lost their source of energy. And here, the community comes together to remember, to connect. And those are important. The third thing, I'm looking at you getting antsy, so I'm going to speed up. You were good? All right. Rituals. There's a very strong, so Hindus are generally, as you might already know, entirely optional religion. The whole thing is optional. There's nothing that is really mandated, but rituals, some of the rituals, you got to do them. So especially mourning after death, that's a very important ritual where the entire family, 13 days, has to go through this process because you want to grieve the full cycle out. You don't want to grieve too early and then have leftover grief heavy sitting on your heart for the rest of, for long periods of time. You want to be done with that. There are, interestingly, people in India whose professional job description is they're the crier, the weeper. Sometimes the spouse doesn't cry, she's sitting there, she's stoic, she's just going about her business. You might call, I've not seen those, but I've seen movies about them. You might call them to come in and weep because you want this person to experience the grief, not send it in, but send it out. And so you might call someone to come in and weep, and that will help you do that. The rituals include going to pilgrimages, dispersing the ashes, of course, but beyond that, going on pilgrimages is an important part of this process of a ritualistic process of recovery. There is kirtan chanting, which I know, Reverend Harriet, you do, and we've done this at the Pleasanton Center when you were there. Chanting together, singing together, as you all know as congregations, is very important because it allows us to disconnect, to disconnect from this narrow sense of self, woe is me, pity, and then it opens your heart. It allows you to connect, and that communion allows us to feel that we're all in this together. It's all right. And so chanting together is also done ritualistically. And then there are prayer meets. In death especially, there are specific prayer meets that happen when people come in and visit the family, and then they go through the process. So it's a very, very well organized thing. Now to the last part of the part 3, again, mental and spiritual suffering and anguish, philosophy, lots of philosophy. Karma we already talked about. There's a really interesting things where some of the philosophy isn't just philosophized. Some of the philosophy is sung out, right? And so there are these ritualists, there are these epics and stories, and some parts of those at these times are called out. There might be Puranas, or there might be the epics, the Itihasas. So what I sang to you, or tried singing to you, is from a chapter called Sundarkand in a book called Tulsidas Ramayana, which is a broader epic called Ramayana. And so this particular chapter, Sundarkand, is sung, and might take you between an hour and a half to 2 hours to sing the entire thing together. And this is sung routinely. First 40 days of someone's death, you're going to do this daily. And it allows you to remember those stories. And Sundar means beautiful, and refers to a very interesting, very poignant episode, but it's sung out in slightly older Hindi. This isn't Sanskrit, which is thousands of years old. This is older Hindi, so it might be 600 years old sort of language. So you can still kind of sort of understand what they're saying, but it's kind of like reading Shakespeare. You know what he's saying, you don't know how the heck he came at that combination of words. But hey, and then so you might do that. You might do another book we call Garud Purana. Garud means the eagle, and so it's from the golden eagle. It's from his perspective what happens to the spirit after we die. He's describing that, and that's also chanted out after someone's death, because it's describing a step-by-step journey. On this day, this is what's happening. On this day, this is what's happening. It allows us to let them go. And if the spirit is still hovering around, it allows them to also let go. Because then they say, okay, this is all good. It's happened to other people. It happened to me before. All good. Let me go to the next thing. And then there's other prayers they do, like Satyanarayan Katha. The heart of this, part 2 of the verse I sang for you, was keep the animator of this universe, the creator, the energy that creates and moves all of us, keep that creator in the heart. And then go about acting in the world. We understand now that we're only pieces of this whole. And so these philosophical chantings remind us of that connection. We are pieces of this whole, and we may therefore not grieve alone. We may therefore not suffer alone. It's part of a process unfolding through, and we're just participating in it. And now it may have been time to grieve, but it is now time to move up and get back into action. And so philosophy we often rely upon. So those are the 3 things. I'll recap, and then I'll give you the bonus part of this talk. The three things are, when we think about miseries, we think of them as threefold miseries: those caused by supernatural events, those caused by physical events, and those that are inside and caused by our thoughts and our experiences, experiencing self. And in all cases, our kit of tools has many different things that people do, often in a combination with each other. But now that we're here in the West, we live in, I live right down the street. We don't have many of those tools. The biggest loss is the loss of community. Unlike how Western religion is organized, Hindus are not a congregational religion. I've given this talk at Interfaith, Interconnect once. This was a topic, I think, 5 or 6 years ago. And my line was, we don't congregate, we crowd. And the downside of not being a congregational religion is that we don't have a community that we belong to that could swarm around us and envelop in their embrace. right? But you can't have it. It's not natural to not have a community around us. So how do we recreate that community? So I run a spiritual care institute. We teach people how to have this embracing, warm conversation with people, holding a space for them to experience fully that which they have suppressed. And so we train people for that. And then because we're in Silicon Valley, we have technology that allows that. So we now have things that work in our phone and our video, and you can now talk to someone possibly around the planet in your language who knows your cultural context, who knows what you're going through, and they're holding a space for you to fully experience whatever you need to experience. What we're working on now is creating a cancer care, spiritual care protocol. So just like the doctors have their protocol, we want to have our protocol saying, okay, you got the news, well, who do you call? Talk to us, we know how it feels to get the news, we'll talk with you about it. You got the second, the second advice, we'll get you. You got the chemo going, we'll get you going. You got everything done, you're stabilizing, we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you all the way through this process, and we're here with you. We know what you're experiencing, and we are here with you to help experience this with you, to hold the space for you. So that's what we're doing, using all the technology to make up for all the things that are missing in the way we approach this. So with that said, I'm done with the prepared part of my talk, and I'm open for any Q&A, should we have any time.
Yeah, we're fine. We can take a couple minutes of questions.
But again, Masha, thank you for inviting me. I always love meeting this group and always the interaction. So thank you for that. Any questions or comments? Yes?
Are you involved with the Hindu temple here in Livermore?
The question for those on Zoom is from Reverend Harriet is, am I involved in the Hindu temple here? I am involved in the Hindu temple here. I'm one of the yoga teachers. Saturday morning, 8 o'clock, you're invited to come. It's free, you can walk in. So I'm one of the yoga teachers for the last 14 years. I'm also the designated interfaith speaker. So whenever they send them a message, it comes to me that Gaurav, they called. Why are you not going there? And then I also host temple visits. So if you're interested in a temple visit, I'm usually the guy they call because, again, I give talks, I do the walk. They need volunteers, so I do that as well. So that's a few things I do at the temple.
Maybe we could arrange an interfaith.
Yes, I'd love it. We'd all love it. We look forward to having you. You let me know. Yeah, we'll come. Any other questions or comments?
When you speak of karma, is there somebody keeping track of it?
Yes.
All your good things and your bad things. And they will be giving it back to you, whatever you put out, correct?
So the question for those on Zoom is, in the Hindu idea of karma, there's somebody keeping track of this accounting and then they're sort of giving it back to you or adjusting for you. That is our sense as well. The interesting thing is, in the Hindu sort of community, there are people whose sort of the guardian deity is this accountant. And he's an accountant and his name is Chitragupta. Which is interesting because they say when someone dies, their entire life flashes before them, right? But only they can see it. And that secret image in Sanskrit is Chitragupta. So you can imagine that process of the entire life flashing by your eyes as you're sort of passing by, that's the calculator. And so those people that have this as their guardian deity, they're typically lawyers, accountants, that sort of stuff. So it's an interesting turn of events, as it turns out.
So is that, so the person holding the accounting, is he? Or she?
They.
I call her. Intelligent energy, God, or?
Yeah. So great question. For those on Zoom, this person, they, them, that is calculating all of this. Are they an intelligent energy or a god? The way the Hindu tradition works, I'll tell you the three interesting things. You might think of them as energies because they are intelligence, right? They are intelligence. They're also energies because they have the ability to act, and they're personified. And often it's confusing to see Hindus because you might look at us and say, millions of gods, what's going on? Right? Why can't you make up your mind? No, we personify it. And so we think of we give them a name, they have a physical form, but we understand that there are ways that we may engage with them. Just the way you might give hurricanes name, you have to give these forces of, the intelligence. They're given a name so we may understand them. And that's how it works in the Hindu tradition. I thank you for that question, Masha. I thank you once again for the opportunity. Thank you.
Gaurav, if you're available to stay a little bit after we finish, if other people think of questions, perhaps they could ask you then. All right, now let's welcome Reverend Harriet as our next presenter.
Isn't Marsha the best? Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Thank you, Gaurav. Isn't Gaurav great? What a light you are. The Hindu religion is so vast. It's just, I could listen to you forever. It's extraordinary in its complexity as well, in its detail. It's funny, when I saw the theme, when it said grief, loss, and tragedy, I'm like, well, there's so many different ways to go with that. And you just went right with the categories. It was so helpful. Thank you. Thank you for that. That was really wonderful. I'm a little simpler. So the first thing that came to me personally about how do we support people who have gone through grief, loss, or tragedy is listening. That ultimately, no matter what's happening, no matter what our cosmology, anyone's cosmology, when we actually are faced with a circumstance, how we all experience it is going to be different. I mean, everyone here has experienced suffering. I've never met anyone who hasn't. And if I was going to ask you, like, how did you move through it, everyone's answer is going to be different. None of us move through things the same. So the place where we begin is with that humility of just listening and seeing who that person is and what their way is forward for them. In the wellness world, for those of you some of you may be aware of this already, trauma has become a big word. There's a lot of training about trauma and how there's been more trauma, or we look at things now from a standpoint of the trauma of the past. What's interesting about the research around trauma is that it turns out that that it's not really the event. I mean, that's part of it. But the place where the trauma hits is in how we respond to it. So we can have the same trauma, but how we respond to it is differently. And it can be what we as a human being would say, oh, that's not a very big trauma, or that's a big thing. That is less important than how each person responds to it. So an example of that is I have two friends, and both of them have lost a child. And this is true. One friend, when they lost, and this was this person was they were younger than 20. Well, I won't say, they were both children. And the way they dealt with it was first to obviously deal with the pain of it. But within the next month or 2 months, they were back on the pulpit. And they were preaching and talking about the experience and processing it out loud with their community. My other friend, who's also been in this teaching for probably 4 decades, their response was dramatically different. It was like, none of this is making sense to me. I just can't go back to where I was. And they just sort of disappeared. And it's taken them years, not just like a few months, years, to sort of reorient and say, what do I deeply believe? How do I heal? And they're now just getting to the other side, but it's taken them years. So in our support of people when they're going through something is not to assume we know what their journey is. We don't know. There's no better or worse in those two stories. It's exactly what those two individuals needed. And so it would be sort of arrogant for me to project onto them what the best journey is through their grief, loss, or tragedy. So we listen. But eventually, as we're listening, as a community, we also do have an understanding, a cosmology. And so we start to move it, we also include that. Our cosmology isn't quite as intricate as Hinduism or Christianity or Buddhism, because our philosophy, as we can see in our beautiful world's religions, is the founder of this teaching, Centers for Spiritual Living, his name is Ernest Holmes, and he didn't say, I came into the world with a new religion. He had basically one idea: I'm here to synthesize. Look at what are some universal truth principles that are true throughout. And it wasn't just him, this is a whole tradition. If you look at perennial philosophy, it goes back to the ancient times. So even that he didn't create, but he just created a sort of, this is what he did in the 1900s, is what is that universal principle? And this was an aspect of where religion was growing to his background at that time, as many people were in the early 1900s, was Christian, and saying, well, how are we like science? Science was run on principles, and like the law of electricity is true for everybody, not just one group. It's a universal truth. Everyone, no matter what your culture, no matter what your background, these principles work. And so he became interested in what are the universal principles that are true across the board. And so the fundamental principle that we have is oneness. That if you look into the mysticism of the world's religious traditions, if you look into the mysticism of even philosophy, if you even take physics and you can start moving into this realm of oneness, that behind all form, beyond all this physical realm, beyond anything that we can see, taste, touch, or smell, beyond the world of the senses, there is this presence, this isness of pure being. It's absolute and unchanging. It's birthless and it's deathless. It is always already whole, perfect, and complete. It is oceanic love. It is love that has no beginning and no ending. It is always unconditional. It never judges. It's just its nature to be love, to be peace, to be joy. This is the essence of all life. And so the first principle that we teach, and then the extraordinary thing is not only is there this one power and this one presence, but it's in all of us. Because there's no separation. As soon as you say there's oneness, if it was to stop and something else was to begin, that would be a finite experience. That would be something that has a beginning and an ending, and it has no beginning and ending. It is in, through, and as all creation, including all of us. So within, through, and as all of us is this wholeness, is this peace, is this love that is unchanging. So the first principle is articulated as there is one power, one presence. It is in, through, and as all creation, yet never absorbed by that creation, meaning creation never limits it. There is nothing that can happen in this world of form that could ever limit this wholeness. Isn't that extraordinary? And so the idea is to start looking from this place of beyond what we see with our eyes, and to see and feel and know this wholeness. And so we do our spiritual practices, our meditation, our prayer, community, all the things that come with community, as Gaurav so beautifully expressed, to start touching into this transcendent oneness that is in, through, and as all creation. And it is in our body. It's every atom and cell of our being. It's our emotional life. It's our mental life. It's our energy body, our causal body, every aspect of our being, oneness. And that's the place where healing happens. That's the place where when we connect, when we have that moment of touching that oneness, healing starts to happen in our life in ways that often that we can't imagine. So that's where the healing, so that's where the healing place is. One of the little pithy phrases that Ernest Holmes used to say, there's nothing to heal, only God to reveal, only this oneness to be revealed. And we're human. And we feel so much pain at times, and we have physical illness, all the stuff that Gaurav was talking about. There's the world challenges, there's all these different things that say, no, this isn't one, only love, only peace. There's very painful, there's violence, there's anger. What do we do with that? Well, the way our understanding is in this teaching, and which we believe is connected with universal principles with all teachings, is this is the world of the relative, it's the world of the transition, and is transitory. So everything in this transitory, temporary world is dualistic. There is a good and a bad and a dark and a light. There's the yin and the yang, this perfect balance of that which we would call good and that which we would call bad. But the absolute, there's no duality. It's all good. It's all love. It's all peace. So what we do here when people are going through grief, we listen. Part of this being a universal, you may have heard that I would say most people in our community would identify saying we're spiritual but not religious. What that means for us then when people are going through something, they could identify with any spiritual path. We honor all paths to this oneness. And there's infinite paths, there's infinite names, all of these. And so every person is different, what draws us. So our job is to listen to their soul, to what their path is, and their journey to their healing, their journey back to their wholeness, while we are holding their wholeness. That sounds very abstract, so let me give an example. I'll first give a person example from both sides, as a person who's received and a person who's given. So there was back in the 90s, there was this issue that I had in my life, and I was so full of anger, and I couldn't stop the anger. It was just going on all the time. So we have something called practitioners. Now, a practitioner's job is to hear us, to listen to us, to create a safe space so I can be human and feel all that anger, while at the same time they're holding my wholeness and oneness. So when I was feeling, and I had been to therapy, I could tell you back and forth every reason why I did this and I did that because of this and blah, blah, blah. And I love the understanding, but it wasn't impacting my anger. So when I went to her, she listened and held the oneness. And in holding that oneness, I could share all the anger, and it began to dissipate. Not because she was telling me, well, you should do this, or there was this I can't explain it. It's what we teach, that there's this power, this light, this wholeness. And as I was giving the anger, it was dissipating into the nothingness from which it came. There's no universal principle that sustains hate or anger. So that which needs to be dissolved becomes dissolved if we're holding only love. So her job as a practitioner, and we have practitioners in our community, is to hold that wholeness and that love all the time, even as she's having deep compassion for my pain. She's not denying my pain. She's hearing me. She's listening to everything I'm saying. I'm crying, I'm yelling, it doesn't matter. She's there. She's vibrating with it on the one hand, and on this other hand, she's whole, perfect, and complete. And we have a prayer team that does the same thing. When people are in pain, they pray. And the way we pray is to acknowledge what is happening, but at the same time to hold someone's wholeness and perfection. So it always allows these possibilities that we can't see from the transcendent realm to move into the world of form in a healing modality. And whatever is needed for that person, again, what each person needs is unique. And the infinite love intelligence, all that Gaurav was talking about, that knows everything about us, it's going to know what our path is, and that person's path is, and our job is to hold the wholeness and to support them in finding their own journey towards healing and health, whatever that looks like. And then on the other side of that, I practiced this for 4 years. I worked in a psychiatric hospital, and I did this the entire time I worked there. I held the wholeness for not just the clients, but for the staff, for everyone, just anyone who I was in contact, wholeness. I knew I was called there by the presence to hold this oneness, that there's nothing other than this oneness. It's impossible to be outside this one love. In this room right now, there's only one love. That love is available to every one of us now, and it's unlimited and unconditional. And so I just hold that space, and I would meet with people, and at the same time, I'm listening to their pain. They have diagnosis. I go to I am engaging with them on two levels: the human level, their diagnosis, the things that are showing up, things that can support them in their healing in the human realm, and on the spiritual realm, I'm holding the wholeness. And there were some dramatic healings, and then there were some people who did nothing. That was none of my business. We can't control what, we're not here to control, because everyone's journey is different, and I don't know everyone's journey. That, again, goes back to the beginning, humility. I don't know, I can just only hold that presence of love that I know is in my heart, because, so our practitioners go through 4 years of training, because to be able to do this for other people, we have to heal and get to that place within ourselves that we can actually hold that wholeness for other people. And we hold that love, that absolute, unconditional, unwavering love that is at the core of every human being, the wholeness, the peace, the joy that never is touched. And we hold the deep and infinite compassion for everyone's personal journey and all this incredibly difficult challenge of the human journey, because we all experience loss. And loss actually is part of our journey to the day we leave. There's this loss. So we learn how to be with that in tenderness, in gentleness, in kindness, and compassion, and at the same time be strong in our absolute truth of who and what we are. And that's how, and so we have our prayer team, we have our practitioners and our community, and this is how we support people as they go through whatever grief, loss, or crisis they're in. So we just... Did I get it in time? Yes. Okay. So we'll just, I'm going to open for questions, but I'm going to do 1 minute, just since he, Gaurav, I'm sorry, I shouldn't call you he, gave us this beautiful meditation. I'm not going to take a long time, just a quick prayer. Just turn within. We recognize that this oceanic love is in, through, and as all creation right here and right now. It is all the billions and billions of galaxies. It is every blade of grass. It is every atom and cell of our being. It is all of life, all of the time. It never stops being its radiant, beautiful self. And it is from and as this one power and this one presence that is pouring through and as me and through all of us. We claim and accept for each and every person who is here tonight, who can hear my voice. There is a healing happening. There is a healing beyond what we can imagine in ways that we may not even know that we need healing. We are returning in physically, emotionally, mentally, energetically, causally to our divine wholeness in grace, in ease, and in love. For we are that radiant life of God in the midst of all life's challenges. We stand in that light. And we say, thank you, thank you, thank you, God. We release this into the law of life, knowing that as we have said this and claimed it, it is being fulfilled even now by the power and the love of pure love energy. Thank you, God, and so it is. Amen. Say fini. And so if there's any questions, I'm open to any questions. I know it's 6 o'clock, so... Okay. Well, does anyone have any questions at all? Yes. Oh, thank you. What's your name?
Well, we at our church, I'm a member of UNC.
Oh, welcome.
We also have family members that there's 4 of those positions that have a large extended family. But one thing is universal is people coming out to help.
I'm sorry, one thing's universal is...
To help.
Ah.
Our own pastor lost her father 3 weeks ago, was it? 4? And it was a surprise. She got to say goodbye. She went home. First thing we talked about is the food. Everybody bringing the food, some memories being shared and so forth.
Here, if you have a, want a mic?
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay, I just want,
Do I need a mic, folks? Yeah.
well, I was thinking of the camera. Yeah, because otherwise I have to repeat everything you're saying, which is challenging. But I'm going to hold on to the mic, okay? That's what I do.
Good move. Okay, but what, the universality you talked about, and what always has impressed me when I've had to work with grief, I used to work in hospice with oxygen therapy and everything. People are like their fingerprints. You're exactly right. You have to be very careful. And all your training said that too. But the universality about all of us human beings with the food, the community, and the listening. The biggest problem we have in the Western world is I'm going to brace it up. I'm going to hold it in. And that's why we all have a lot of work to do. But I just love the universality when we talked about the food and everything. Because then you go from there, and there's a lot of traditions we follow. They may look slightly different, but the purpose is the same. You know?
Yes, yes, love that. Thank you. Community. Anyone else? Oh, yes.
I just wonder if you use music at all in any part of your healing work that you do.
I would say we have music in our Sunday services are just like sort of a traditional church service. So we have music throughout the whole service. We don't do chanting. Well, every center is different. So there's kirtan in different centers. If people feel called to do kirtan, we don't have any kirtan going on here currently, chanting, but we are open to it. We have a yoga teacher who does sound healing. But our practitioners, our prayer team, do not use music in a healing modality. They're mostly counseling sessions, one-on-one, and prayers. So thanks, great question. My husband's the musician here, so I get to hear it a lot. Anything else? Thank you for being, oh no, I guess you're thanking me. I love this woman. Oh, I just have to say one other thing. Because I didn't think of it, so I was there. The only time I've ever spoken at Interfaith is when I was at the Hindu temple. Amazing. I love it.
All right. Thanks again to both of our presenters. What powerful, meaningful, interesting presentations. I think people will probably come up with some questions as the week goes on. So you could email your questions to interfaith.interconnect, and we'll pass them on. I have a brief announcement. Our next religion chat is the same topic, June 12th, Wednesday, June 12th, and we're on summer hours, 7 to 8 p.m. It's light out then. And we're working on speakers and location. They're in process of being confirmed. So keep an eye on your email. If you don't get our Interfaith emails and you'd like to, you can let me know afterwards, or you can email interfaith.interconnect@gmail.com and ask to be added to the list. And we usually only send out 2 emails per month reminding people about the religion chat, so we won't fill your inbox every day. Yes?
Do you have a website?
We do have a website, but it's quite modest. So we have a Facebook, and so that's probably where it's more up to date probably, and it's Interfaith. I don't have Facebook, but I just Google Interfaith Interconnect Facebook, and it comes right up. Yeah. Yes, Harriet.
Interfaith Interconnect have, other than a religion chat, any events coming up in the next 2 or 3 months?
We don't have anything else besides religion chat over the next couple of months. We traditionally do some kind of a program in September in observance of UN World Day of Peace, which is September 21st. And we usually do a Saturday or a Sunday, either right before or right after, whatever's closest to that date. And I'm pretty sure that this year September 21st is a Saturday. So we normally do a gathering for that. We also do an interfaith Thanksgiving service in collaboration with the Livermore Pleasanton Interfaith Clergy Association. And some of you have been to that. The last one was at St. Clair's Episcopal Church in Pleasanton. So that will be coming up. We have a couple of ideas about some other events, but we don't have anything else planned. Thanks for your question. Yeah. Anything else? Thank you again for coming. If anyone wants to stay on and find someone you don't know and chat with them, you're welcome to do that. Or if you need to get going, you're welcome to. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for hosting. Thank you, Harriet. Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you all. Okay, I'll try not to drip.